To suffer, to sacrifice, is there a difference? Can one become the other? What are the sufferings of this year that you are grieving through or have grieved so that with the Paschal Mystery, you might transform them into tomorrow's sacrifices? It is mandatory for us to understand the suffering that Jesus went through so we can begin to understand our religion, our faith, and in turn, our own suffering. I am asked from students, did Jesus have to suffer? Did he have to sacrifice his life? Did he have to become human in order to save humanity? And I answer the question, no. It's God. He can do whatever he wants. The fun part is explaining the answer. Why did Jesus, being fully God and fully man, suffer? Without going into details of Jesus' brutal crucifixion, by becoming fully human while still being fully God, he had to endure the normal suffering of humans. Being born, the baby goes through the birth process. Jesus did this. Suffering by crying because of the pain of hunger, Jesus did this. A baby starts to move around, crawl, try to walk, and fall and get hurt. Jesus did this. Jesus had the suffering of a person being born into a poor family. Being fully human, Jesus had to suffer death. Humans die. All of these sufferings were also sacrifices. As God, he didn't have to go through any of these pains and sufferings. He chose to for us. He could have just appeared as God in a form of a human, but he didn't. In other ways, Jesus suffered and sacrificed for us that we don't normally consider, and it relates so well to many of us. We can make it help us with our daily suffering to know that he went through similar things. Jesus was a refugee, a migrant, an immigrant. His best friends abandoned him. They left him when he most needed them. Not only did Jesus suffer physical abuse, he also suffered verbal abuse. Angry and bitter words cut into his heart and soul. Jesus responded with love and understanding. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. It's how we should respond, but for the most part, I definitely have to work on that. Possibly the greatest suffering of Jesus was the hard and cruel fact of his love being rejected by so many people. We feel that too. We can't forget all the suffering Jesus went through while being fully human. We can relate to these. God understands our suffering, and we try to model ourselves after the suffering of Jesus and his response to what he went through. Now I want to say something that please don't get offended. Some suffering is good. Some suffering is done because of sacrificing. Some horrible suffering becomes wonderful sacrifices. Richard Rohr said, if we don't transform our pain, transmit it. So many of us do this. We get mad at what we're going through, and we blame it on others, or we even blame it on God. And then we take it out on them, and we even take it out on ourselves. God does not cause our suffering. Sometimes we do, or the environment around us, or others can cause us to have pain and suffer. But God is here for us and with us when we suffer, and we have the example of the fully God and fully human Jesus to help transform our suffering in the sacrifices that can help others. How about some examples? A mother sacrifices, she knows she's going to suffer through the birth of a child. She sacrifices that suffering for the birth and the love of her baby. There are many examples that many people endure for others. I don't need to go in great detail, but here are a couple. Someone works a job they can't stand. It's to put food on the table and provide for the family. People have to work multiple jobs, many, many hours to provide, but they choose that to take care of their family. Some skip medicine in order for there to be enough money for food or pay their rent. Some parents even skip eating dinner so their children don't go to bed hungry. Those are choices we make, but we suffer. Now, some horrible suffering that can turn into wonderful sacrifices. There was a young boy, 6, died of a rare childhood cancer. He fought it for 14 months, had ups and downs. They thought he had it beat. He was feeling better. Then it came back with a vengeance and he died. He had a twin sister. He went by Super Sam, and she is Amazing Eva. That's way too much suffering for any parents or a twin or a family to ever have to go through. And sadly, so many do. But his family started the Super Sam Foundation. They took their suffering and now they turned it into a sacrifice that they offer family support for groups, comfort packs for kids going into the hospital or for parents. And they raise money for grants for research. And they offer information for parents. His family has taken his twin sister to Washington, and she's spoken in front of Congress twice. There are videos on YouTube and on their website from thankful parents receiving help from the Super Sam parents. And they say that Sam's parents suffer his death with every child they try to help. They suffer when they help another child live, and they are still thankful, but they still go through the death of Sam. And when the other child dies, they relive the death of Sam again. Their family, they are following the example of the suffering and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. We are all suffering through 2020. With the exception of the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, the rest of the year can be a do-over. Coronavirus, lockdowns, unemployment. Everybody's worried about the economy, the continuing of racial injustice, and the list goes on. How will we model Jesus Christ with all these sufferings? Some suffering we face is really nothing. We make it worse than it really is. For example, Sylvia is wearing a mask in public. You know, it's not a political statement. Just wear a mask. We need to stop being judgmental and help. If you're unemployed and need help, ask for it. We all have to swallow some pride and ask. If you're blessed to still have your job, offer help to others. We need to stop being judgmental and help. The loss of the life of George Floyd was a senseless waste. We have to have justice for all in America, this to be America. We need to reach out, ask questions, and most importantly, listen. His family, brothers, sister, children, and more are suffering. And they have already are transforming their suffering into sacrifice by reliving this event. And they have even spoken to Congress and to others trying to make this a better place for all. There are many people who feel bulletproof when it comes to their relationship with law authorities, and they have not yet witnessed discrimination. We need to realize that this is not this way for everyone. We need to stop being judgmental and help. I pray that we are thankful for the suffering and sacrifices that the fully God and fully human Jesus went through for us, and the example he gave us on how to live, act, treat each other, and yes, to be thankful for the suffering that we endure and the ability to allow us to suffer and transform that suffering into sacrifice. And a question to contemplate or discuss once again. What are the sufferings of this year that you are grieving through or have grieved through, so that with the Paschal Mystery, you might transform them into tomorrow's sacrifices? What are we learning? What are we learning about our own sacrifices that with the help of remembering what Jesus went through, we might actually be able to help someone out tomorrow? Thank you, and you guys have a great camp.